So you've made a 3D model and now you want to texture it, but before texturing it you're going to need to UV unwrap the thing, and that can be a bit of a pain. So I've made you a quick little model here that is very easy in its geometry that we can use to show you UV unwrapping. Now, if you have a more complicated model, obviously the unwrapping process is going to be more complicated. If you have a more organic, less jagged object, it's also going to be more difficult, but the same basic principles that we're going to be talking about today will still apply. So first things first, seeing this as all white isn't really going to be too helpful with us UV unwrapping this thing. So we're going to go up into the shading tab first. In here, you can press Shift A and then search for image texture, and we will make a new image texture, call it something like UVs or UV tiles or whatever. And by default, this generated type will be set to blank. We will set that to UV grid or color grid, it doesn't really matter, but let's go with UV grid. Now, with that image texture selected, we can go up to the top right corner here, press this little shading arrow down, and then change this from material to texture, and now it will display our selected texture on the model that we're working on. So now when we go over to the UV editing tab over here, we can select the entire thing, and first and foremost we don't really see too much detail here as to how our UV map looks. So to make things a little bit more clear, we can enable display stretch up here. This will work twofold. We will be able to more easily see our UV map, and it will also show discoloration. Blue is entirely unstretched, and the more it's stretched, the more it will be discolored. So if you see a lot of colors that are not blue, that area is going to need a little bit more work. We can press this UV sync selection. Then when we click off this, the UV islands won't disappear. But obviously this is not a UV map that matches this model, right? And that's because I just used the default cube and made this thing out of it. But it's still using the default cube's UV maps. And as you can see, there's a couple of faces that have the UV grid on it, and the rest are just entirely grey because it doesn't have any UV coordinates. So first things first, we can select this edge over here, then holding down Control, we can make a selection all the way around here. We can press the U and mark seam, and then with the thing selected, pressing U again with unwrap, you will see it's starting to unwrap things, but it's not in a very good way, is it? As well as you can see, there's a lot of discoloration over here because there's a lot of stretching going on. These textures are all over the place, and that's because our unwrap is just horrible. Now let's Control Z out of that because we don't actually want to do what I just did. And I'll show you a couple of ways to do that a little bit more easily and a little bit more quickly. Number one is going up to the options over here and UVs live unwrap. So now when we make a seam, it'll automatically unwrap the model for us. So we can make a seam over here, which again, this is not a line that we actually want a seam on, but just for demonstration purposes. If we mark the seam, you will see automatically things are getting unwrapped. But we can do it one step quicker even, and that is if we select an edge and then holding down Control we select another edge, we will get the pick shortest path to that edge. So if we look deeper into this, we can say edge tag is by default set to select because that's by default what you really want, right? But we can also tag a seam. So now every single time we press on an edge and we hold Control, click another edge, we automatically have a seam there, and as you can see, it automatically unwraps every time we click. So this makes the entire workflow just infinitely faster. So I hope that shed a little bit of light on doing some UV unwrapping. It's a very, very in-depth topic which we don't have the time to get into all the little details here today, but generally speaking, techniques like this are going to make the entire process a little bit easier. Trying to find where the seams should be is a bit of an annoying task to do, and honestly, there's oftentimes not a right way to do things. Very much depending on what the asset is going to be used for and how it's going to be viewed, you might want to prioritize putting seams on one place or another place. So for things like animations, if I know that the camera angle is going to be something like this, I can get away with putting seams a little bit more here, or putting more ugly seams on the backside. If it's going to be a game asset that the player is going to be able to walk all the way around, you're going to have to be a little bit more careful. But in that case, the chance of them seeing the bottom of the model are going to be slim to none. So do try to pack in most of your seams in the bottom. If you have a player character that you know is going to be wearing clothes that are separate from the actual character model, try to make a lot of the seams happen under those clothes, that kind of thing. So it's very context sensitive, and as such it's hard to give very actionable advice on what to do with where to place the seams. But having a technique that allows you to quickly iterate on placing those seams is going to make the entire process a lot less painful.